Good morning. Got that, Benny?
Good morning, Shana. Delegate Jimmy O here.
Oh, good
Oh,
morning.
got that on the line.
Okay,
for the
we have a
record.
quorum now. Good morning. Oh, yeah, Dave Bennett. We have a quorum, Chair.
Ramona, are you on the line with us?
I am, Chairman.
Okay, if you would do an official roll call for us.
Roll call for the Budget and Finance Committee of the Navajo Nation Council. Special meeting, June 8, 2021. Jamie Hino, your location, please.
I'm present here in Rema, New Mexico.
Thank you, Chairman. Raymond Smith Jr., your location, please.
Present, Gallup, New Mexico. Shanetta, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shanella. Jimmy Yellow Hair, and your location, please.
I'm here, the window up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yellow Hair. Elmer P. Begay, and your location, please. Elmer P. Begay. Amber Kennisbach Crotty, and your location, please. Amber Kennisbach Crotty. Nathaniel Brown, and your location, please. Nathaniel Brown, and your location, please.
Yes, that's too. This Delegate Brown is present. I'm driving to Window Rock. I'm in Burnside right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shatay. Chairman, we have four
It's
members
Delegate
present.
Brigadier Elmer. It's
Okay.
Delegate Brigadier Elmer.
Elmer Begay, and your location, please.
I'm heading to Ganado.
Okay, thank you, Shana.
Oh.
Chairman, we have five members present upon roll call. One member not entering roll call. Chairman?
Ramona, for that roll call, we do have a quorum, so I'll officially call this meeting to order on June 8th, 2021. Budget and Finance Committee special meeting is 10:12 a.m. And so with this, we do have a proposed agenda before us. Shananta, good morning, Budget and Finance Committee members. So with this, invocation deed, the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to the Zimbihat Otsihigi. Shananta, Delegate Jimmy Gillo here.
Biga hoyate, sila atu so de slito, nan jido tahayu. Kera ni tayar ni tra kude hajon le ni tra ni chayar ni tra adole don damasan kima komba kai na inigito oro ba she sina konda ajan ni down naning sozobna bindil ni she arto konda never pass about it arto chinda ido taido aron that is saying that it also pertains to the budget of the 2021 A1 story. The capacity leadership assured and now we don't be able to do cut. We have a lot of work to do, and thanks for everything. We need a rain here on Navajo Nations. We have livestock that we need to feed, and we need to take care of our elderly, our veterans, and also our three branch to take care of our government. Amen.
Yeah, General Katsadinzani, the Penny Bia. So can now at least back or so. Naso Ikata, a recognizing kiss of visiting official Kadoya, legislative branch staff Peggy Naka and Ramona Nelson, Akis Keho, Nikana Nichio, Baki Lego. The legislative branch speakers, officer and speaker, any staff members on the call right now. Office of the Speaker. Chief Legislative Counsel, Sean. Office of Chief Legislative Counsel, Dana Barboff. We do have
This is Lurley.
on the line with the Office of Chief Legislative Counsel. We have a young man, which I'm so proud of, from Alamo, New Mexico. And his name is Chad Abeda. And he is a new staff attorney within the ranks there at Chief Legislative Counsel. And then we also have Shnatani, former council delegate, Dwight Witherspoon, also clerking for the Chief Legislative Counsel's office. So if they're on board listening, welcome to the legislative branch. And I think I heard Mr. Pahi on the line. Mr. Pahi, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Can anybody hear the Chief Legislative Council staff?
Chair, I think she might need to use a different phone or something because that wasn't very clear at all. It's kind of slurred.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Yes, can you hear me? This is Lurleen Sapahi. Okay,
Yes,
thank
I
you.
can hear you. Christina, good morning. The Department of Justice, Navajo Nation Department of Justice.
Morning.
Good morning. This is Brian Curley Chambers with Navajo Nation Department of Justice.
Good morning, Brian. Good to hear you.
You too.
Anybody else from Department of Justice? Hey, do have Office of Management and Budget online.
Good morning. This is Dominic Bial, OMB.
Good morning, Dominic. And also
Morning.
Office of Navajo Nation Controller's Office.
Good morning. This is Elizabeth Begay, Acting Controller.
Good morning, Ms. Begay. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And do we have the Office of the President, Vice President staff on the line? Office of the President, Vice President, or Executive Branch staff? Okay, and then also, do we have Navajo Nation Office of Tax Commission? Okay, are there any other guests that I did not call upon? Please identify yourself for the record.
Chair, Shadeja and everybody's also on the call from the committee.
Okay. Christina.
Good morning. This is Beverly Tong with the Office of the Auditor General.
Good morning, Beverly Tom. How are you doing?
Good, Chair.
Good. Is there
Good morning,
anybody else
Chair.
on the line?
Yes. This is Robert Allen from the Division of Natural Resources. Vanjie will be joining us shortly.
Good morning, Mr. Allen.
Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Sean Vendale with Risk Management.
Yes, right. Good morning, Mr. Shonavin Dale, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. This is Pearl Lee, Program Manager with Navajo Nation Telecommunication Utilities.
Good morning, Ms. Lee. Thank you for joining us. I believe that is everybody. We do have a Budget and Finance Committee member, Shananta, Delegate Amber Kanosva-Krati on the line. Good morning and welcome, and your location for the record.
*6 to unmute, Chair.
Am I muted?
No, you're not muted. Now you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Chair.
Okay, let's move forward. Any Navajo Nation, 24th Navajo Nation Council delegates, are there any delegates listening in, joining us today?
Good morning, Chair. This is Carl Slater, Delegate Slater.
Good morning, Shananta. Vice Chair Slater. Okay, let's move forward to adopting our agenda. We do have a proposed agenda before us, Shananta, Budget and Finance Committee. With this, Peggy, if you would read the agenda into the record for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. If you don't have a copy of the agenda, you can find it on the Navajo Nation Council website. And it was also mailed out with the Zoom meeting invite. Proposed agenda of the Budget and Finance Committee of the Navajo Nation Council, June 8, 2021, special meeting, 10 a.m. via teleconference. Presiding is Jamie Henio, Chairperson, Raymond Smith, Jr., Vice Chairperson. 1, call the meeting to order, the roll call, the invocation. 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. 3, review and adopt the agenda. 4, review and adopt the journals. There are journals for February 2nd, 2021, March 2nd, 2021, March 16, 2021, March 25th, 2021, April 6th, 2021, April 13th, 2021, May 4th, 2021, May 18, 2021. 5, receive reports. A, update on the grant agreement for the Saley Wheatfields Ag Project presented by Vanjie Curley Thomas, Deputy Director, DNR, and others. The first bullet is timeline for grant agreement development. The second one is the grant agreement section 6 amendment. B, FY22 budget process update presented by Dominic Bial, Director, Office of Management and Budget. C is update from the Office of the Controller presented by Elizabeth Begay, Acting Controller, Office of the Controller, and others. 6, old business, none. 7, new business. A, legislation number 0079-21, an action relating to the Resources and Development and the Budget and Finance Committee. Accepting the special review of Baca Pruitt chapter submitted by the Office of the Auditor General, approving the corrective action plan submitted by Baca Pruitt chapter, sponsored by Daniel So and Mark Freeland, council delegates. 8, close of the session, written announcements, adjournment. The next regular meeting is June 15th, 2021. And that concludes the reading of the agenda.
Thank you for that reading. Shananda, Budget and Finance Committee members, is there a motion?
Motion, Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith, motion to accept the agenda as read. Is there a second?
That is Delegate Brown, I'll second.
Delegate Nathaniel Brown, second. So we do have a motion by Vice Chair Smith and second by Delegate Nathaniel Brown. And committee members, the floor is open for any debate on the proposed agenda. Are there any?
Chair Henry, this Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith, you have the floor.
Okay, Shananda, and all those that are online with us this morning. Good morning. Good to hear everybody ready to go. What I'd like to do is propose that legislation 007921 ABATT CASA, since we're the final authority, Asian Zad Naidi Kido and Nacha Bandate Ido with motion.
Vice Chair Smith, there's a motion on the floor for Amendment 1. Is to hear legislation 0079-21 under new business first. And then after that, we can go back to item 4, and then 5, and then 6. Is that your motion, Vice Chair Smith?
Shananda, I meant to say 4. We can adopt the journals, and then we can go into the new business.
Kashina, so the motion would be is 1, 2, 3, and 4 as is, and then before number 5, go to number 7, new business legislation A, and then after that, we'll go to the reports. There's the motion on the floor for amendment number 1, committee members. Is there a second?
Yellow hair. Yellow hair.
Delegate Jimmy Yellow Hair seconds that motion. So there is a motion and a second. Amendment number 1. Committee members, any questions or comments on amendment number 1?
Sure, this is Delegate McGay. Can you hear me?
Oh, Shananda, go ahead. Do you have the floor?
Chair, I wanted to make another amendment from there, but my question is going to be I know that we have OMB, Mr. Bial, but he's going to be reporting on the budget hearing process. But wanted to know that if we could hear from OMB on the proposal process for ALPA funds and FOR funds. Can we put it as a separate agenda too?
Gashina, Biga. Vice Chair Smith, there's a request to modify your motion to also add a report under 5. Since we do have Office of Management Budget providing information on the FY 2022 budget process update, also to have them provide the report on the ARPA process. Vice Chair Smith.
Chair Henry, Honorable Begay, Ashibiaho. That is part of my amendment.
Okay. Thank you. Shinanta, Delegate Jimmy Yiller here. Ashwiga.
Oh, Abiga. Yeah, thank you.
Kashina. So this modified amendment, number 1, is to add a report item on the under 5 as possibly C. It would be under as the letter C would coincide with the FY22 budget process update. C would be the ARPA funding process update, also provided by the Office of Management and Budget. And then C would turn into letter D, which is update from the Office of the Controller. So we would have 4 reports under 5. With that, amendment number 1, any further questions or comments? Could do a roll call vote? Yes? Okay, with that, I'll do a roll call vote to accept amendment number 1. Ramona, if you would lead us on that roll call vote to accept amendment number 1.
Okay, Chairman, roll call vote on amendment number 1. Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Okay, thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
Bobby, how about green?
Okay, Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Amber Kenneth-Bach Crotty, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth-Bach Crotty, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green.
Okay, thank you. Nathaniel Brown votes green. Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Okay, thank you. Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative. 2 chairman not voting, 1 member not voting. Chairman?
Thank you for that vote. Amendment number 1 receives a due pass. Go back to the main motion on the agenda. Hearing none, I'll do on the main motion, roll call vote to accept the agenda with 1 amendment, which is to after number 4, go to new business item 7A, and then from there go back to receiving reports with 1 report item added on the agenda. Hold on for me. With 1 report item being added as letter C, which is the ARPA funding presented by the Office of Management and Budget. And then D would be update from the Office of the Controller. That is our agenda before us. So with that, Ramona, if you would lead us in the roll call vote to accept the agenda with 1 amendment.
Yes, Chairman. Vote for the main motion vote with 1 amendment. Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I'll vote green, thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Amber Kenneth-Bach Crotty, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth-Bach Crotty, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green.
Thank you. Nathaniel Brown votes green. Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
Chitako, green.
Okay, thank you. Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposed, 1 member not voting, and chairman not voting. Chairman.
Thank you for leading us on that roll call vote. Budget and Finance Committee members, we do have a vote of due pass to accept our agenda with 1 amendment. And with that, let's move forward. Item 4, review and adopt the journal, February 1st, 2021, March 2nd, 2021, March 16th, 2021, March 25th, 2021, April 6th, 2021, April 3rd, 2021, May 4th, 2021, and May 18th, 2021. With this, I believe they've all been emailed out to us. So with this, is there a motion to review and adopt the journals?
I'll motion Yellowhair.
Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. Motion.
Second, Vice Chair Smith.
Second by Vice Chair Smith. Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. On your motion to review and adopt the journal, AD Ashasago individually or all at once?
I'll take all at once. I'm pretty sure that we can all read our stuff. Honorable Chair, all at once. Thank you.
Vice Chair Smith, do you concur?
I concur. Consent.
So the motion And the second is to accept all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 journals. Is there any questions or comments? The floor is open, Budget and Finance Committee. Hearing none, roll call vote to accept the journals as presented on the agenda. Ramona?
Sure, Chairman, vote for the receiving and adopting the journals. Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I'll vote green. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Amber Kenneth-Bott-Crotty, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth-Bott-Crotty, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green.
Thank you. Nathaniel Brown votes green. Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposed, 1 member not voting, chairman not voting. Chairman?
Thank you for that roll call vote, Ramona. We do have a due pass on accepting, reviewing, adopting the journals. So thank you for the votes, and let's move forward to new business. Item A, legislation 0079-21. I did notify Chairman Daniel So and Delegate Shinada, Delegate Mark Freeland, that we were going to this item first. So Shinada, Che, Delegate Daniel So, Chairman Daniel So, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Che.
With that, Peggy, if you would read the legislation into the record for us. Peggy, are you there?
Yes, I just posted the approved agenda. That's what I was doing. Let me, hold on a second. Let me get the legislation. Okay, this is a proposed standing committee resolution. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Which was assigned to Resources and Development Committee, Defense, Budget and Finance Committee, 24th Navajo Council, 3rd year 2021, introduced by Daniel E. So, sponsor, also co-sponsored by Mark Freeland. Council delegates, tracking number 0079-21, an action relating to the Resources and Development Committee and the Budget and Finance Committee, accepting the special review of the Baca Pruitt chapter submitted by the Office of the Auditor General, approving the corrective action plan submitted by Baca Pruitt chapter. So this legislation has been read into the record electronically, and there's a special review of Baca Pruitt chapter, a report from the Office of the Auditor General, which is Exhibit A, and it's report number 19-33. September 2019 was when it was developed. Then you have the corrective action plan that is also attached to the legislation, and there's a letter to the Auditor General dated September 30th, 2019. Exhibit B is the corrective action plan. And then you have a resolution of the Baca Pruitt chapter. The Internet public review document is attached and there were no comments received. And I do know that the Resources and Development Committee has reviewed this legislation. And I don't have the updated, hold on a second here. The committee report for the Resources and Development Committee is not attached to the copies that I have, but I will get those and then I will send those out to all of you. Oh, there is an updated copy. Okay. This was updated. And you all received copies of that, of this legislation. There was one comment from Geraldine Benally that's on the first report of this legislation. Mr. Chair.
Christian Gala, committee members from the Budget and Finance Committee. Legislation has been ready for the record. There's an updated committee report from RDC. Therefore, is there a motion?
Yellowhair motion.
Nanda, Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. A motion. Legislation 0079-21. Is there a second?
I'll help out my big brother, Vice Chair second.
Vice Chair Smith, second. The motion by Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair, second by Vice Chair Smith. With that, we do have this sponsor, Chairman Daniel So, on the line with us. But before we get to Chairman Daniel So, let's hear a report from the Office of the Auditor General. I believe Ms. Beverly Tom is on the line. Ms. Tom, you have the floor to provide the findings from the Office of the Auditor General.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. This is Beverly Tom with the Senior Auditor with the Office of the Auditor General. Today we are presenting the audit report number 19-33, and it was a special review of the Baca Pruitt chapter. Since the time, if you see that the report was finalized back in September 2019, with the delay was due to the CAP process, and then there was also the government shutdown last year that kind of interrupted our finalization of this CAP review. I'll begin with the background on the chapter. Prior to certification of this chapter in 2006, the Office of the Auditor General conducted a compliance audit of the Baca Pruitt chapter. In 2010, the Office of the Auditor General conducted a follow-up review, which resulted in sanctions against the chapter and officials. In 2013, the Office of the Auditor General conducted a supplemental follow-up review, which resulted in lifting the sanction. In 2014, in conjunction with REW LLC, there was a certification review of the chapter's file management system and recommended the chapter for government certification. Subsequent to the certification, the chapter had a financial statement audit done in 2016 by Harshwal and Company, who issued a qualified opinion of the chapter's financial statements. During our review, the former chapter manager had resigned on October 25th, 2018, and the administrative assistant at that time was promoted to the chapter manager on February 6, 2019. So during our audit review, the chapter did not have an administrative assistant. And our audit covers activities from April 1st, 2018 through March 31st, 2019. And our objectives for this audit is to determine if controls are functioning has assigned to ensure travel activities comply with policies and procedures and expenses are supported with documentation, to ensure housing assistance comply with policies and procedures, to ensure payroll activities comply with all regulations and policies and procedures, to ensure the bank account is safeguarded and managed in coordinates with policies and procedures, to ensure budgets are properly approved and budget changes comply with policies and procedures, to ensure accurate and reliable financial reporting and audit requirements are met accordingly, and to ensure the Chapter 6 assets are fully accounted for and managed to comply with policies and procedures. And with this review, as far as we have 15 findings. The first finding, chapter does not adhere to travel policies and procedures. What happened there is that travel requests were not approved, travel costs were not accurately calculated, expenditure is not supported with documentation, travel expense report was not approved by the chapter manager. Finding 2, chapter advances are processed contrary to travel policies. The chapter manager authorized 11,154 of travel advances at 100% rather than the 80%. The travelers were inconsistent in providing proper supporting documentation such as completed travel expense report, trip reports, mileage reports, and lodging receipts. Despite these discrepancies, the chapter did not deduct employee salaries or official stipends. Lastly, the chapter administration posted travel expenses to the incorrect GL codes. Finding 3, the chapter did not verify all required documents that were submitted by housing assistant recipients. What we found is that recipients did not provide income verification statements. Recipients did not provide a home site list or other documents to show ownership. Finding 4, the chapter did not verify that building materials were used for their intended purpose. What we found during our field visits to residents of 5 housing recipients is that we found 3 of those did not have building materials on hand, have not done any repairs, or no longer residing at the physical location. The current chapter manager was unaware of these issues regarding the building materials. Finding 5, the chapter used housing discretionary funds for other purposes. We found that chapter expended 1,518 of housing discretionary funds for repairs and maintenance for the chapter house, senior center, and the ASC and chapter equipment. Although the chapter's policy states funds can be used for minor repairs for the chapter, is contrary to allowable expenditures set forth by the Navajo Nation. Finding 6, late payroll tax reporting resulted in IRS penalties. For the review period, the chapter did not consistently deposit payroll taxes by the 15th of each month. The chapter made late deposits anywhere from 2 to 5 months after the due date. Further, the chapter did not submit its quarterly tax report reporting the report ending September 30th, 2018 to the IRS. Finding 7, personal records are not maintained according to policies and procedures. As a certified chapter, the BACA Pruitt chapter performs all human resource function at the chapter level using the personnel policies and procedures. With this, we selected the administrative assistant and chapter manager personnel files for review. Personnel records such as employee application, IRS W-4 form, copy of Social Security card, employee performance evaluation form, and copy of valid driver's license or picture ID were not consistently found on file for the chapter employees. In addition, PAFs were not completed with proper pay rates for the administrative assistant and chapter manager. Despite these incomplete documents, the chapter president and former chapter manager approved the personal action form. Finding 8, promotion of current chapter manager cannot be justified. What we found is the current chapter manager was promoted in the absence of documents such as a letter of interest and performance evaluation to show the employee attained the necessary education and experience to qualify for promotion. Finding 9, bank account signature and access were not clearly defined. And what we found with the bank signatory card is that the chapter manager is not on the bank signatory card, but the chapter president and vice president are co-signing checks with the justification memorandum. The current chapter manager was excluded from the bank signatory authorization since she currently prepares the bank reconciliation. This arrangement will continue until an administrative assistant is hired. Online banking. The former chapter manager had online access for the bank account, which allows her to review bank activities and print bank accounts. During the field visit, the current chapter manager and secretary treasurer both have online access for printing bank statements. The Chapter's 5 management system policies and procedures do not address online bank access. The chapter acquired such access without developing internal policies and procedures to govern such activities. Finding 10, chapter expense funds without approved budget. What we found there is that the chapter, the funds not budgeted is the capital outlay, the carryover, and the internal revenue, and that in FY18, an amount of $39,996 was not budgeted. In FY19, $22,542 budgeted. Finding 11, lack of budget compliance resulted in budget deficit. As of September 30th, 2018, there was 4 chapter funds that had deficit balance, which was the chapter activities in the amount of $10,056, Navajo Nation General, $14,751, LGA grant, $14,469, capital improvement project, $15,606. 6 months later, as of March 31st, 2019, there was 3 chapter funds still showed deficits, which was the chapter activity, the amount of $4,426, the LGA grant fund in the amount of $4,469, Navajo Nation sales tax in the amount of $1,096. The chapter relied on the FY19 Navajo Nation allocation and other revenues to reduce the budget deficits between September 2018 and March 2019. Finding 12, budget transfers are not well documented and approved by community membership. What we found was there were 2 budget transfers. The first one was that chapter activity budget was decreased by $8,942 and transferred to the supplemental youth fund by transferred in the amount of $1,567 to the supplemental youth fund and the public employment program of $7,375. The LGA grant budget was decreased by $9,625, and that money was transferred to increase the PEP fund. But however, there was no documentation on file to support the budget transfers. Finding 13, financial reporting is not provided at chapter meetings for the 12-month review period. The chapter meeting did not report any financial reporting for 5 months, which were the months of November 2018, December 2018, January 2019, February 2019, and March 2019. Currently, the Secretary Treasurer and Chapter Manager are posting the financial state and meeting minutes for public viewing, but the Secretary Treasurer is not providing financial reports at duly called chapter meetings. Finding 14, process for tracking fixed asset is lacking. There is no process to identify, verify, and track chapter's fixed assets. We found that there are no historical records to show when the fixed assets were purchased or acquired. The Head Start building is not reported as part of the fixed assets. Financial statement audits from 2016 shows finding of inadequate capital assets records that has not been addressed. Finding 15, financial statement audits are not being completed. The chapter became certified in 2014 and obtained a financial statement audit for fiscal year 2016. To date, no audits have been completed for the subsequent years. Therefore, the chapter has not complied with financial audit requirements. The 2016 financial statement audit disclosed a qualified opinion with 3 audit findings regarding journal entries, capital asset records, and travel expenditures. There's no record of a capital corrective action plan that was addressed for these findings. And we did provide recommendations for each of these findings, and we also did provide a recommendation for ASC to take a more significant role with the Baca Pruitt chapter operation and finances, which is to help instill the accountability by providing close technical assistance and monitoring to bring the chapter back to acceptable status. And that would conclude my report for audit report number 1033.
Okay, thank you for that report, Ms. Tom, from the Office of the Auditor General. Before I go any further, let me ask if there officials from the Baca Pruitt chapter are on the line. I believe President Cecil Lewis and his team. Are you on the line?
I'm on the line there, Honorable Chair Cecil Lewis Jr. here, Baca Chapter President.
Kashina. Other the Vice President and Secretary Treasurer Shah.
Yes, this is Geneva Warito. I'm Secretary Treasurer. I'm online.
And we do have Ms. Tina Pacenti online too, our chapter manager, and her chapter assistant, Sharon Lowley. And I'm sure that Ms. Cindy Howe's online too.
Okay, Ms. Cindy Howe, are you on the line?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. This is Tina Vicenti, Chapter Manager with Baca Pruitt Chapter. I'm sorry to inform you, but Mrs. Cindy Howe is not on the call. The meeting was, we were informed very short notice of this meeting. So unfortunately, she was not able to be on the call this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And it is important that all 3 officials participate, as this is very important as we budget finance is the final authority and to move forward. So with this budget and finance committee, we are missing the vice president of the Baca Pruitt chapter. She's not on the call right now, so it's up to the committee if they wish to proceed further.
This is Delegate Yellowhair.
Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair?
These officials, chapter officials, they ought to know the government is very important for the people of their community. Even the last minute notice, they should be here. No excuse. This is their job. She needs to get on the line. She's already interference. She's already delayed. chapters of Port, Pruitt, and Bucca. That is important to take care of these findings for under the chapters. We can't take care of it if one official is not there. And I don't know why he or she is not there. These positions, official positions, come to this are very important to a community. They should be around and take care of it, take care of this business. And I don't know if the chapters is certified or non-certified. I didn't hear that one too. So this is my concern to the chair, and should be here to understand what's going on in the chapter operations, president and vice president and treasurers, and also chapter manager. They should all be here to see this very important legislation come before us. I just want to about this to the chair.
Yeah, that's not that. Delegate Jamil here. Committee members, any further? Otherwise,
Chair, this is Delegate Brown.
Nanda, Delegate Brown.
Yes, let me motion to move this to after the report. I thought this is the reason why we voted to move this forward. I thought everyone was notified. So that was done prematurely by us from Budget and Finance Committee. I think before we move any of these legislations around the future, the first question that we need to ask is if everyone's on the line or aware. So let's go back to reports. I motion to move this back after the reports. Thank you.
Okay, Delegate Nathaniel Brown. Before I recognize your motion, let me have one question for Baca Pruitt chapter, Ms. Vicente or Shenandoah, President Lewis.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I will address.
Hold on.
Okay.
Is there a possibility that Ms. Howe would be able to come on this call later on today, or is
hello?
Completely busy?
Yes, Ms. Tina Vicente, could you answer that?
Hello. I made Cindy right now, her schedule is booked for the day. As far as this afternoon, she's not available. This email that we received regarding this meeting notice was not sent to us until 4:28 p.m. yesterday by Rosita Yazzie. So therefore, Mrs. Howe had already scheduled out her week, and I'm not too sure when your agendas are distributed or when they're finalized. But if it was finalized last week, we should have been notified last week. So we received this meeting notice at 4:28 p.m. yesterday by email from Rosita Yazzie. And therefore, Cindy Howe is not available to be on the line. I understand your concern. I do agree with you that the officials do need to be on the line, but also keep in mind, Mrs. Howe has been working with the chapter and making these corrections and making it possible to get the CAP together. She has been on this from day one. Thank you.
Mr. Jamie Henio, Honorable Chair.
Yes.
I understand that one of your colleagues, one of the Honorable Chairman or delegate right there, did announce that this was all a premature announcement. Therefore, we need to work together on this to make a corrective action plan work for our chapter. But just to address the council, we are back into a normal stage, as I may say, on this operation, and I see that there's a lot of corrective action has been brought to our attention, and some of them has been corrected. I know the last time we had this correction action plan meeting, we was back in 2019.
Can you hold on, Shenandoah?
Okay.
Can you hold on, Shenandoah? We're starting to get into debating the legislation here.
Okay.
All we need to know is that Ms. Howe will be on the line. Apparently, she will not be. available today. And it is important that I believe the chat block approved chapter and the staff were aware that this legislation had been developed and dropped for the 5-day comment period by Chairman Daniel So, and therefore they should be on the lookout to say, okay, when is Budget and Finance meeting? Is it on their agenda? Will it be on their agenda? So forth. But let's move forward. Delegate Nathaniel Brown, as per your motion to put this further down back on the normal part of the agenda, as you've heard, Ms. Howe will not be available today. So back to Delegate Nathaniel Brown. What is your wish on your motion?
Yeah, thank you. Since she will not be available, let's move this to the next Budget and Finance Committee meeting and notify them. I believe the others are listening from Baca Pruitt chapter, and they can all be present at that time. Yeah, thank you.
So are you motioning to table this resolution?
Yes, I motion to table till the next Budget and Finance Committee meeting when all the chapter officials and manager are present.
So there's a motion on the floor to table this resolution 0079-21 to June 15th. That's our next regular Budget and Finance Committee. That should be ample time. 1 week out. With this, so is there a second, committee members?
Delegate Elmer Begay. Second.
Delegate Elmer P. Begay, second. So there's a motion and a second to table this resolution. Legislation. With that, committee members.
Hello?
So therefore,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Cindy's getting on the line.
Please do not interrupt. We are going to, there's a motion and a second to table this resolution, the legislation. Ramona, if you would, lead us in a roll call vote.
Sure, roll call vote for the motioning table. Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I'll vote red. That's his chair.
Jimmy Yellowhair votes red. Amber Knisbot-Crotty, how do you vote? Amber Knisbot-Crotty, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green.
Thank you. Nathaniel Brown votes green. Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
Vote green.
Thank you. Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 3 members voting in the affirmative, 1 opposing, 1 member not voting, and chairman not voting. Chairman.
I guess you know with that roll call vote, we do have 3 in favor, 1 opposed. Legislation 0079-21 is hereby tabled till June 15th. Next Budget and Finance Committee meeting. With this, Vice Chancellor.
Yes, Chair Henio, quick question on this. Would it be required to go into executive, because these are pretty serious matters that has been presented, and if that's necessary, I think we should be prepared for that also in regards to this audit finding. That's my question. And the other question too is, I was looking for the documents that the auditor was reading off of. I wonder if that could be sent to us again, and we could review that and then get prepared for this upcoming June 15th regular meeting. And if they don't show up, then also too, Chair, we could subpoena folks that are not showing up regarding this issue, because we're the final authority. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So Peggy, there's a request to have the Auditor General, Office of the Auditor General, resend the documents pertaining to legislation 0079-21 for the review before the next Budget and Finance Committee meeting. And so we will be prepared. The other question would be if there is any items that are sensitive. Office of Legislative Counsel regarding this report. Is all public information, or are there some items that would require executive session discussion.
Mr. Chair, this is Lurleen from Office of Legislative Counsel.
Yes, if you would, please.
Yes, okay. So my understanding is that documents deemed confidential would have to be deemed confidential by either Chief Legislative Counsel or the Attorney General of the Navajo Nation. The special review of the Auditor General, the memorandum dated February 8, 2021, requesting OLC to prepare legislation, that's not marked confidential. The Auditor General letter to Cecil Lewis, the president of Baka Pruitt chapter, that is not marked confidential. Neither is the report itself. I don't see anything on the special review that is marked confidential. And so, in my opinion, there isn't anything that is formally deemed confidential or of a sensitive nature that should be discussed in executive session. However, the committee, of course, is free to do so. There may be some objections, however, and so I don't see anything that's actually marked confidential. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for that advice. And so when we do get to the next meeting on January 15th, we'll keep that in mind. Vice Chair Smith?
Thank you, Chair Henio. Also, the question was on the subpoena, if they refuse or if they're uncooperative regarding the meeting next, BNF's meeting next week. Shananda, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Shananda, okay. Chairman Daniel Su, are you still on the line with us? Chairman Daniel So.
Star 6 East Che. Yes, I'm on the call. I've been listening.
If you would let your agents from Baka Pruitt communicate with them and make sure that it's been tabled to the next meeting, and if they could all be present.
Yes. Yes, we had a call with the ASC, Miss Garina Atakai, yesterday at 2:00. And that's when I informed the folks that were on the call from Baka Pruitt that this legislation was coming. And again, they were present for the Resource and Development Committee, so they knew that the legislation was going to go to BNF. I do just want to correct the next meeting date of BNF is June 13th. Am I correct? 15th. Oh, the 8th. Okay, yeah, June 15th. I'm sorry. Thank you. We'll send an email to the group, and I'll do my best to assure that everybody's on the call.
For that. And let's move forward on the agenda.
Mr. Henio.
We do have reports now. Make it quick. We do need to take care of our reports.
Sure. Thank you very much. I do believe that our chapter manager will be on a vacation trip next week, and she'll be. She might not be available, and I understand the subpoena coming out of your colleague, but I'd like to have her say something about this. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, this is important that all three officials are present.
Correct.
They are the leadership for the community.
Correct.
And as far as your support staff, that's under your leadership. If you mandate them to be present or not, so that would be, I'll leave that up to you. And
Okay.
it's always a call-in. You can call in from anywhere in the United States.
Okay.
For this legislation. So let's move forward, committee.
All right. Thank you, Ram.
Under next item on the agenda is receiving reports. Item A, update on the grant agreement for the Whitfield project, presented by Vanjie Shirley Thomas, Deputy Director, DNR, and others. With that, Ms. Shirley Thomas, are you on the line?
Hello, this is Vanjie.
Yes. Okay, you have the floor for your presentation.
Okay, I must apologize because we are also before the Navi, the ARPA proposal listing for DNR. But with the daily update information on the MOA and the grant agreement, there was a meeting last Friday. And with that, the Department of Justice and the Water Association individuals and the Farm Board were on the call. So with that, OMB Dominic Villar was also on the call. An update is regarding the grant agreement that was proposed from last month and looking at the MOA. So I think DOJ would be in a better position to really give a good update on that. The reason being is that Brian Curley, he's the one that has been working with the water organization and also with the Farm Board. And I think one thing that we need to understand is that the Water Association did submit their recommendations for modification to the existing memorandum of agreement, the MOA. But since then, a grant agreement is being considered. So I think that DOJ might be in a better position to give us some insight on that and get a good understanding as to what the two would mean and how they would move forward. So with that, aside from that, the division also did receive from the water organization information regarding that updates and all. So we're currently in the process of completing the reviews on that. And the one part that was returned maybe a month ago to the water organization is a budget expense reporting. So that was really reviewed in detail. So the other is regarding the performance criteria. So that's kind of like in a nutshell on an update for the Daily Fleetfield Agriculture Project. But otherwise, the grant agreement, I think, like I said, Department of Justice might be more helpful with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Department of Justice?
Yeah, hi, this is Brian Curley Chambers with Department of Justice.
Yes, Brian?
Yeah, so just a little bit of background on the issue. I think there's a little bit of confusion. You know, when the project was first organized, what was implemented was the MOA, the Memorandum of Agreement, which was in place without enough details about how the money would be expended and just the process that would be undertaken. So that's why the MOA was deemed insufficient, and then discussions about implementing a grant agreement were then, we turned to the grant agreement to take the place of the MOA, but the MOA would stay in place, and that would be used specifically to govern the relationship between the Farm Board and the Water Users Association going forward. So now the grant agreement is kind of where we're going to focus on for, getting the money that remains to be expended, or at least drawn down to be given to the Water Users Association. So that's kind of where that is. And I'm going to continue to work on the MOA separately from the grant agreement, because the MOA doesn't say anything about the funds that are going to be used for this project. I believe the only mention of it is the fact that it's going to be given from the Navajo Nation to the Water Users Association. So the MOA is going to be changed moving forward, and I'll be working with the farm board, and I have the recommended changes from the Water Users Association as well, but I have not been in contact with the Water Users Association. I think that's just something I should clarify. So I've only been working closely with the farm boards because that's who I generally work with. But so the grant agreement itself is kind of where we're focusing on to try and get this Saley Wheatfields agriculture project back on schedule. And I believe the last time we had discussed the remaining funds, I believe Robert Allen mentioned around $6,000 that was still remaining that needed to be drawn down. And he asked DOJ to unencumber that. And I didn't understand what he meant at the time, but I believe one of the issues we're still trying to figure out too is whether or not this grant agreement is going to be for that remaining $525,000 to $600,000 that remains that had already been drawn down, or if we're going to be making if the grant agreement is going to be for the remaining funds. I don't know if there's $2 million that still remains. I'm not sure what is there in terms of the money, but what I know is we're trying to figure out where the grant agreement needs to be amended, if it needs to be amended at all. And I believe that was the discussion we had left for today, just to decide whether or not the grant agreement needs to be amended. And I think over at DOJ, we have kind of discussed it further and decided that there should be some amendments, because the standard agreement, the grant agreement, is a little, it's going to be kind of hard to apply in this situation where the money has already been sort of partially spent. And initially, what usually happens is there's 30% that's paid out to the grantee. But since it's already halfway expended, or maybe more than half already spent, there probably should be amendments to Section 6 of that grant agreement to incorporate something with a little more detail of how money should be spent from here on out, considering it's already been partially spent. That's the main point that I think we need to discuss further of the grant agreement. That's pretty much it.
Thank you enough for that. So back to you, Ms. Curly Thomas. Is that the extent of your presentation, the report?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
With this, Budget and Finance Committee, is there a motion to accept the report?
I'll motion that. Delegate Yellowhair.
Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair motion. Is there a second? Is there a second? We have a motion by Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. Is there a second, committee members?
Chair, I have a quick question.
Okay, if I'm still waiting for a second so we can have questions.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, Delegate Nathaniel Brown, second. You have the floor.
I'm reading our text messages. I believe that was it this report that required an amendment on section 6, I believe. Peggy, do you have the language on that?
Chair, can I answer?
Who's this?
This is Peggy.
Yes, Peggy, if you would provide, because this is just a report. We're not on any legislation or thing like something like that.
Yes, thanks for explaining that. The intent of this report, the update on the grant agreement was primarily the Budget and Finance Committee requested that this item be placed on the agenda for today so that the committee could determine whether they need to make a directive. The first item is the timeline for the grant agreement development. And last meeting on June 4th, the OMB Executive Director informed the committee that his Administrative Service Officer, Bahi Bitsili, was the one that works with the programs and departments on grant agreements and other entities outside of the Navajo Nation when they receive Navajo Nation funds. And so Bahi Bitsili and the Ag program, they need to work on developing the grant agreement. But in addition to that, the committee was informed by the, I believe it was Department of Justice, that we may need to strengthen the language in section 6 of that amendment. So that, section 6 of the grant agreement to move forward. And so that was also requested to be included on this agenda so that a committee could determine if they need to make a directive going forward so that they can be expedited. These two items could be expedited because the Ag project is behind in their planting and their activities to promote their project further. So that's just my explanation on why this item is on the agenda. We already had a discussion on where we're at with the grant agreement and the MOA previously at the June 4th meeting. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, this is Robert Allen from the Division of Natural Resources. Can I say something?
Yes, staff would help us with this discussion to where it will be a little clear.
Yes, sir. Here at the division, we'd like to still be the liaison that's in the model grant agreement. And to help everybody out, even though there was an MOA in this particular case, we have gone forward and treated this MOA as a grant. And we've administered the grant under the budget manual, sections 10 and 11. And that's how we've proceeded to where we are today, which is in conformance with what will be formally done with an MOA and grant agreement. To try and speed up money to get to the Saley Wheatfield Water Users Association is a matter of about $511,000 the last quarter of this year. And Banji is reviewing their report that was submitted. And the only issue that we discussed last week about it was if they did not spend funds under the grant in accordance with the agreed upon expenditure plan that was adopted by the budget, we can work with them, but it would be good if we could call them disallowed costs and recover them in the next installment of the outstanding $2 million for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Allen, with Divisional Natural Resources. Back to the committee. Any questions or comments?
Chair, I think that Vice Chair Slater is on the call, so maybe he could add to it if he'd like.
Chair, any other
Vice
questions?
Vice Chair Smith, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Chair Henio and committee members of the Budget Finance. The last meeting we had on this was basically on the Permanent Trust Fund. I was chairing a meeting, and it was on June 4th. It was talk about a directive, and that's why we have this meeting. Other particulars on this behalf, I guess, will be coming later, but the Honorable Elmer Begay wanted to ensure that there would be a directive, and we were going to make a directive at that time, but it was more geared towards a committee meeting so that it had weight on the directive. And the other issue was Section 6, like Shutta said about Section 6, and that was either going to be a directive to DOJ to make that language stronger so that this wouldn't happen again. Apparently there was embezzlement, and the embezzlement was done with in the water project, but that's water under the bridge right now. However, those were the two items, Shananda, and I'm sure that we brought back to the Permanent Trust Fund and meeting when we have another Permanent Trust Fund meeting. But those were the two items, Chair Henio. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Smith, and also thank you for chairing that meeting. Well, I was going through some technical difficulties that day. Our next PTF update meeting is tomorrow morning at 8:30, where we will have everybody that have been awarded funds for their projects coming before the committee. So with this, maybe we could shed a little bit more light on the topic. Shananta, Vice Slater, you recognize. Vice Chair Slater, are you on the line? No, Vice Chair Slater, are you?
This is Delegate Yellow Hair.
Delegate Jim Yellow Hair.
Okay, and from the day one, I was on the meeting on June the 4th. From the day one, I'm concerned about this funds that was awarded to Sahili Whitfield for a agriculture as a nonprofit organization. For me, I think we should just, the amount of embezzlement should be monitored. How much is still left out of that? I think it was $3 million as the total award to them. If there's any fund balance, it should be monitored by the embezzlement. They should take care of the business. This is what we call Budget Finance Committee. We have to take care of the funds. We just can't see funds be misappropriated like this. All the officials should understand. The embezzlement amount and how much balance is still left with them. It should be minus. Is there any left? They can have that money, but to understand, they should take care of the money properly used to intend to that project. I don't think this has ever happened. So, about this case, all the leaves of the dog, I do about dog. At the $10. The best of it. She was about this case. The all yes, not. Aber not the best I thought on the best one not as any so there are not in the community will never been get assistance with that non-profit organization fund. But then the all yes never not on it long. As your best any Abraham and you're not on it to be in that committee. Shady of a best about all in such a deal about all. Others and those in there. But all the old money to those they say it's about all. Yeah. That's what I'm saying for. It's not that she's not on. When it's about her seat only. Chair.
Mute your phone. Background music noise. Back to Vice Chair Slater. Are you back with us on the line? I think I believe he's off the call right now. So with this, back to the committee. We do have a motion and a second to accept the report. Are there any further comments or questions on this report?
Chair Henio, Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you, Chair Henio. Since I was chairing the meeting, I'd like to make a directive for DOJ to review Section 6 and to incorporate language in there to prevent future MOA not being complied with and embezzlement happening. That was suggested, so I'll make that directive for them to find language to ensure that we don't end up as we are right now with the problem that we're facing, and this will cover that. So I make that directive, Shananda. Thank you.
Shananda, Vice Chair Smith. Let's accept the report first. Then after that, I'll give you time to issue it as a standalone direct motion and second.
Okay, Shane. Thank you, Chair, for your leadership on that. I'll recognize that. Take care.
Question on that, I believe there's no further questions or comments, and the purpose was to issue this directive. So with this, Ms. Nelson, if you would lead us in a roll call vote to accept this report.
Sure, Chairman. Roll call vote for the receiving report. Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
How about green?
Thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth-Crotty, how do you vote?
Delegate Yellowhair votes green for the report.
Thank you. Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Amber Kenneth-Crotty, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green.
Thank you. Nathaniel Brown votes green. Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I vote green, go.
Thank you. Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, 1 member not voting, and chairman not voting. Chairman.
Thank you for that. Roll call vote. We do have 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Motion carries to accept the report. With that, Vice Chair Smith, you have the floor.
Chair.
Well, thank you, Chair Henio, and committee members of the Budget and Finance. I'd like to make that directive, make a motion on what I stated earlier to have Department of Justice to review Section 6 in order to prevent any future embezzling regarding any MOA on behalf of this. I'm sure there'll be more requests coming forth. So I make that directive for DOJ because they were saying we need a directive in order to move forward with this. So I make that directive. I make that motion. Thank you.
Okay, Budget and Finance Committee, there is a motion on the floor. That's a directive to Department of Justice from Vice Chair Smith. Is there a second?
This is Delegate Brown, I'll second.
There's a second by Delegate Brown. So this, committee members, questions or comments regarding the directive? Hearing none. With this, back to Ms. Ramona Nelson, if you would give us the roll call vote on the directive.
Sure, Chairman. Roll call vote on the directive. Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth-Bach Crotty, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth-Bach Crotty, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Nathaniel Brown votes green. Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 3 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, 2 members not voting, and chairman not voting. Chairman.
This is Delegate Yellowhair. I was on mute, so I'll vote green. But I know this impediment already happened. I don't know what's going to help with this directive. If we, Mr. Vice Chair, if there's any funds available, maybe we could add this to directive. If funds still available over this impediment fund, that should be minus that. If there's a minus, if there's a red, they should not get no funds. And I add it to your directives too.
Delegate Jimmy Hill here. There was opportunity for questions, comments. Date, then there was none. So now we're in the voting mode. So
okay.
What's your vote, green or red?
For now, I'll just vote green, even though it's not going to work this directive. There's really nothing to it anyway. May as well just give money to them. Thank you. I'll vote green.
Green. So that, Rona, did you get that vote?
Yes, Chairman. So we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, 1 member not voting, and chairman not voting. Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that roll call. Assisting us with roll call vote. 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion the directive passes. With that, back to Department of Justice and Department of Natural Resources, and also everybody on the line on this. There is a directive, and that will be forthcoming from Ms. Peggy Nakai. So Kayla, for your presentation and your presence. Moving on down the line to the next item on the report, Office of Management and Budget. Mr. Bial, are you on the line?
Chair Hinio, this is Peggy. Can I say something?
Yes, is it related to the directive?
Actually, it's not. I just wanted to know who was the second for the first report, the update on the grant agreement. I didn't catch that.
I sent it to you by text as Delegate Nathaniel Brown.
Okay, thank you. I didn't receive the text yet.
Kashina, Aviga. So with that, moving on down to Mr. Bial.
Yes, sir, I am here.
Kashina, item B on the FY 2022 budget calendar. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Hinio and other members of the Budget and Finance Committee, as well as other advisors and interested parties on the line. I hope you have a 2-page calendar that was sent yesterday, because that's what I'm going to be going over.
Yes, I do, and I believe it was emailed up by Ms. Nakai to all the committee members. So if you we do have it.
All right. Okay, going over the document then. It's fiscal year 2022 budget process calendar by OMB updated June 7th, 21, which was yesterday. Now, the reason I put that little information there is because I presented similar reports at your prior meetings, so this would be the most current. Now, the first matter that's mentioned on page 1 is the budget preliminary process. There's A, B, C, D, and E. Letter A speaks about on May 28th, the controller issued the permanent fund income report, which is based on Navajo Nation Council Resolution CAP 30-21, which is the 5-year permanent fund plan. Accordingly, $40 million in interest income is available for the budget. Letter B, May 15th through June 10th. ONB would be developing the proposed fixed cost allocations, indirect cost recovery allocations, external fund cash match, and etc., and finish the proposed FY22 budget instructions manual. Letter C, June 14th through the 17th, the branch chiefs would meet, and there's S in parentheses, meaning it might be more than one meeting, to consider and recommend planning allocations and other fund amounts, as well as complete the branch chiefs agreement. Letter D, on about June 18th, proposed legislation is dropped for the fiscal year 22 budget, which includes the general fund revenue projection, permanent fund income, the planning allocations, and the budget instructions manual. E, the regular budget process begins as approved by B&F committee as shown on the attached budget preparation calendar, which will be page 2. So that's the preliminary activity that goes on as we get ready to go to the B&F committee. So recapping page 1, May 28th, again, the controller did issue that information. You might remember from the prior reports, I would just say that we're projecting a time frame, but it hasn't been received yet. So now it's here. So with that information, we can work on B, which is to finish up some of those planning amounts and so on, and get ready for the BIM to be dropped, the Budget Instructions Manual. We call it the BIM, and then get ready for the branch chiefs meetings, which would be next week if this plan is accepted. And then the dropping of the legislation with all the attachments and exhibits. So that's the first page. Now going to page 2, which is the fiscal year 22 budget preparation calendar. It's marked draft because it hasn't been approved yet. And in fact, it won't be approved in final fashion until the B&F committee meets on step 1, June 24th, 25th. It could be either of those days is when the B&F committee would come into session to approve the budget development legislation, which includes the revenue projections, branch planning allocations, the budget calendar, and the budget instructions manual. So whichever date that is, and once it becomes official, then we'll redo this time frame, and the word draft won't be there. In fact, it would become an exhibit to the BNF committee. So this particular calendar has now, let's see, steps 1 through 9, which is all the activity internal really to the 3 branches. All of that's been moved back about 2 weeks. So I already mentioned step 1. Step 2 would be where the branch chiefs would, whatever the planning allocation they get, they would issue the internal budget planning amounts as well. Step 3, June 29th, the OMB would do the budget orientation, issue the BIM to the branches, divisions, and it would be on sale as well to other programs and anyone who's interested in getting a copy. But in that session, we would cover any significant changes to the annual budget process. Number 4, June 29th, is when the programs in all 3 branches, including the chapters, would start preparing their individual budgets based on their planning allocations. Number 5, July 9th, is when the budgets ought to be done and completed and submitted to OMB. Number 6, July 12th through the 14th, OMB would, as well as the divisions, would work to prepare all of the relevant budget information for the branch chief's budget hearings, which would follow at step 7, July 15th through the 19th. The branch budget hearings review approved budget, branch, division, and program budgets by the branch chiefs or the branch chief's offices. Step 8, July 20th through the 22nd, is when the branch and division final budget information would be compiled and made ready for the Oversight Committee budget hearings. July 9th, we just put in there because annually, by Title II, the Navajo Nation Council will be in the summer session, July 19th through the 23rd. Number 10, July 26th through the 28th, is when the Oversight Committee proposed budget legislation would be dropped. And that would be done by the Legislative Council's office, as well as individual delegates representing the Oversight Committees. Step 11, August 4th through the 11th, the budget hearings would be held by the Oversight Committees. They would approve legislation making budget recommendations to the Budget and Finance Committee. Step 12, August 12th through the 17th, is when OMB, as well as the branches and divisions, would prepare the final or recommended budget packages and information for the BNF committee budget hearings, which would follow the next step, number 13, August 19th through the 25th, when the BNF committee would hold the budget hearings and review, approve the branch chief's budgets and Oversight Committee budget recommendations, and act on and issue the Navajo Nation Council proposed legislation for the overall comprehensive budget. Step 14, August 27th, the Legislative Council would issue the proposed Navajo Nation Council budget legislation for the 5-day public comment. And at the end of that period is when BNF would act on it. Step 15, August 30th through September 2nd, is when OMB would prepare any budget amendments, changes that they approved in their comprehensive budget legislation to prepare it for the NAVI committee and the council, including printing and distribution of the Navajo Nation comprehensive budget. Step 16, September 3rd, is when the NAVI committee would meet to review the comprehensive budget and forward the budget and proposed legislation to the Navajo Nation Council with any changes. September 17th, which is step 17. Step 17, September 7th through the 10th, is the Navajo Nation Council budget session. Deliberate and approve the comprehensive budget, adopt the budget legislation. Step 18, September 29th, is when the president would have his deadline, his 10-day period, to act on the budget recommendation and a resolution that's approved by the council. So that's the process we have here. Overall, this particular process is similar to the regular budget process we had beginning in fiscal year 19, 18, 17, and so forth. So that the council budget session, step 16, September 3rd, and then going to the following September 7th through the 10th, is the typical, regular, normal schedule we used to follow. That week, September 7th, is the day after Labor Day. And this would typically be the time that the Navajo Nation Fair is also underway. Now, I haven't heard if the fair is going to be done this year, but this particular schedule would follow that time frame. So the date is September 10th. Remember, the Appropriations Act reads that the Navajo Nation Council needs to adopt the budget no later than 20 days prior to the end of the fiscal year. Fiscal year ends at September 30th. So the September 10th would meet that 20-day requirement. So then it takes a few days for the Speaker's Office, Legislative Services, Legislative Council, and then OMB to amend and revise the final budget resolution and any of the changes to the exhibits, including the budget book. So that takes typically anywhere from 3 to 5 days after the council is done. That's why we have September 29th as the deadline date for the Navajo Nation President's 10-day action. And my final comment on this matter, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, is I'm acting for a firm endorsement now of this particular schedule because we really need to get going now. We're ready to go with most of the material mentioned on page 1. There's still a few loose ends here and there, but I'm pretty sure we can finish that up this week and get on with the budget process. Mr. Chair, committee members, everyone on the line, that's the summary and overview. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Committee members, is there a motion to accept the report?
Gabriel,
Yellow hair motion.
No, Delegate Elmer. I heard Delegate Elmer P. Begay.
Yellow hair also.
Hold on. Delegate Elmer P. Begay.
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Motion by Shenandoah Delegate Elmer P. Begay to accept the report. Second by Shenandoah Delegate Jimmy O'Hare.
Thank you.
Kushina, with that, committee members, questions, comments? Are there any questions on the budget calendar as presented by Mr. Bial?
This is Vice Chair Smith. Chair Henue.
Vice Chair Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Henue, Budget Finance Committee members, and OMB for y'all providing the calendar. As you know, last year we tried to continue with the calendar, but we ended up doing a continuing resolution, and we know what the continuing resolution consists of and what takes place in that. I'm hoping that we don't end up with a continuing resolution. However, the question would be on the timeline. We haven't had the three-branch meet. So if we haven't had the three-branch meet, then we don't know what the budget would be for executive, judicial, or the legislative in order to start moving forward. The other question too is, I know we're still doing virtual. Is there any possibility that we could get the skeleton staff come in and present these budgets and look at them and review them and then send them back if we need correction or if we need amendments or if we need any action taken like we do with the budget hearing? Some of us can just call in, but I think it'd be well to the advantage of the Navajo Nation to at least have maybe 3 or 4 on board during the budget hearings. But COVID-19 has led up and we went from orange to yellow now. I'm not sure if we're going to change from yellow to a different color, but that's a concern that most of our departments and divisions are wanting to ensure that there'll be a comprehensive budget completed by what is on the schedule 20 days prior to the end of fiscal year 2021 in order to go into fiscal year 2022. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair, for your comments. Are there any questions, comments for the presentation, committee members? Back to you, Mr. Bale. You have a response to Vice Chair Smith's question and comment?
Yes, sir. Chairman, to respond to Delegate Smith's concerns. I agree with his statement that last year the budget process was too rushed. Resulted in less than optimal communications, coordination, and so forth. So that's why we, in fact, as he put it, we ended up not finishing it. So we had to go to a continuing resolution. Now, you remember President Nez was recommending to the council to move forward and adopt the budget to avoid a CR. But nevertheless, we did end up with the CR. And the CR is not a good way to go because all a CR does is say the prior year's budget levels just move forward to the following year. Problem with that is that might not fit the new year's revenue levels, budget levels, changes and rates and schedules and so on. So it just becomes a problem. So that's why you remember at my last meeting, I mentioned that the way to deal with that is to start in enough time to in fact get it done. So that's why I made the remark earlier in my overview that at this point, we need to get going with it in order to meet the requirements of the budget process as outlined in the Appropriations Act, and that's included in the budget calendar. So that's what I'm asking the committee to support. Now, on page 1, regarding Vice Chair Smith's comments about the branch chiefs meetings, it's true they haven't met. However, they ought to be meeting next week, because by then we'll have all the numbers in. And we can run the numbers, prepare them, any potential options, considerations to be put on the table so they're aware of it, and so forth. And you notice that I mentioned specifically fixed cost allocations. We're not completely done with that yet. We have the general fund numbers, but not the IDC. So we need the controller's office participation in that, because a number of the fixed cost budgets also include IDC. The external fund cash match amount, the contracts and grants section of OMB has come up with a preliminary schedule, and they ought to be finishing it either today or tomorrow. With that information, except for the IDC, we'll be ready to prepare the amounts, allocations, the proposed ways to do it for the branch chiefs meeting next week. So if this schedule is followed, then everything else will fall in place as well. Now, as Delegate Smith's comments about maybe having a skeleton crew in to help with the process, budget review, and so forth, because we're still under restrictions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. From our side, OMB, the majority of us are here. And for many of us, most of us, the annual budget process is very busy for us. So we'll all be here. Now, on the legislative side, for the oversight committees, budget hearings, and then the BNF budget hearing and so forth, I don't know about that. So perhaps the Speaker's office, working with BNF to begin, can look at how to improve that collaboration and those meetings. Mr. Chair, that's my reply at this point. Thank you.
Thank you for that reply. Back to the Budget and Finance Committee. Any further questions or comments? Chair Henio, this is Vice Chair. Vice Chair Smith, do you have the floor? I'll go from there. After that, I'll defer to Delegate Elmer P. Begay. Thank you, Chair Henio. Thank you, Dominic Bial, for replying on those concerns and questions. Yes, it's true. I don't know if the controller's on board But the question is, on behalf of the overall FY 2022 budget, or 2022 FY budget, is there going to be a big deficit? Are we working with the same amount, or I know that we always do a projection. So what are we kind of anticipating so that we can kind of be prepared? And I know the chapters are listening in, wanting to also be aware of what is down the forecast, because chapters always are wanting to help their community folks. And I always hear them saying we need to provide them with housing materials, or get them at least a livable quarters for them in the areas throughout the Navajo Nation. I see the whole one, and we do have Navajo Housing Authority, but however, it just seems like the whole one. So now it kind of goes back to the chapters, and they're saying we need to really help them, help our folks. If you look at the conditions out there, it is deplorable, and at least maybe add some dollars to that, whether it's ARPA money or whether it's the CARES money that may be still left behind, UUFB, Tournament Trust Fund. We need to tap into some of those dollars to really help out with our folks out there. So I know that we can't really rely on our natural resources anymore with the Seychin, data. Are we going to be hurting for the next fiscal year? And I don't want to see us going into a continuing resolution. So we really need to do a comprehensive budget and not rush this one, but to really get it completed. And I know that there'll be probably some negotiation going on, and even the personal lapse fund, that becomes a big issue when BNF makes a recommendation to help departments and help their divisions through the executive. But then again, when it goes to the executive side, that's where the authority of them to, they have that authority to veto. We don't have the power to override any of that on basis of that. So those are my questions. I don't know if we have the controller on board to kind of give us an idea what's going on, where we're at with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for comments and questions, Vice Chairman. I'll defer to Delegate Elmer P. Begay. You have the floor.
Okay, Delegate Hinio, Chair Hinio, other the members of the Budget and Finance Committee, and people on the line. I have two questions. One is, I know that previously the controller Kirk at a time, but not that he provided us the update on the projected for 2022. So do you have the same exact amount you have? Maybe you could provide that to us too. What's your projection? Do you have the same amount? And the other one is, so right now, I know that we'll be doing the budget session starting, budget hearings and all that is going to be starting, looking at the calendar. So we can be looking at the Budget and Finance Committee room, and we've been using it, or it's going to be, what's the plan on it to use that teleconference? Or I think we need to, if we're going to do that, we need some good set up where it will be easier to not like the way we're doing right now. Again, we'll be on call, will be dropping, and there'll be noises in the back and all that. So is there a way? Is there somebody that's going to be out there helping you to set up how you guys can be providing the report to us during that time, during all the budget session? That's my question. Thank you, India.
Appreciate that enough for that. So it is, I believe, our acting controller, Ms. Elizabeth Vigay, are you on the line? Navigation Office, the controller, is there anybody from the office there?
Hello?
Office of the controller?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee members, good afternoon. And my name is Elizabeth Vigay, Acting Controller, and I'm here to report on my duties, responsibilities, and accomplishments that I basically met since I started working with the Office of the Controller, May 21st, 2021. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I attached my resume with the memo that I sent to the Budget and Finance Committee, as well as an update of the following: the permanent trust fund income for FY22 budget, as stated by Dominic. We identified $43,569,000 permanent trust fund income available for FY 2022. And of that amount, $40 million will be available for general fund budget, and $3,569,000 will be available for the 5-year expenditure plan. And for the CARES Fund, we identified approximately $43,274,388 to be available for hardship assistance. And I attach with my memo the breakdown of those expenditures, as well as the available balance of the $43,569,000, or $43,274,388. For the external auditors, Moss Adams, the external auditors decided to expand their test work to include more contracts. They stated 6 more contracts, and they will also expand their test work for special duty pay. In that spreadsheet, we identified expenditures of approximately $2 million for special duty pay from the CARES Fund. They anticipate to issue the report by August 2021, but they also would like to hold a work session with the Budget and Finance Committee before issuing their final report. And with regards to the ARPA fund, we opened a money market account on the $1.8 billion ARPA fund. The interest rate for the money market account fluctuates daily, and we receive 0.03% of interest, and that translates to approximately 1,500 interest every day for that 1.8 billion. For the special duty and hazard duty pay, we receive requests from 18 divisions programs to process their special duty and hazard duty pay. And I requested accounting managers to identify staff dedicated to process the request for the hazard duty and special duty pay. So basically, that's the gist of my report. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, that's a response, I believe, to the questions that were posed by committee members. We still are on item B, Mr. Gay, as far as there were two questions posed by, one by Vice Chair Smith and the other one by Delegate Elmer P. Begay. And so with this, back to Mr. Biel, do you have anything to add regarding the two questions that were posed by Budget and Finance Committee?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, speaking about the budget, there was actually three questions. And first of all, Raymond Smith, or Delegate Smith, asked about the revenue level for FY22. Is it going to be a deficit? So now the way we do the budget at the start, we work with the base, what we call the base. That's the recurring general fund. So the base that was applicable for fiscal year 21 was 167 million. Committee members, you might remember that's what the branch chiefs work with as well. And essentially that's the general fund revenue projection, the personnel, or not personnel, but the permanent fund income together. So for fiscal year 22, the Controller's Office on March 31st issued the general fund revenue projection, which is a net amount of 137 million. And as I mentioned earlier, and Ms. Begay just mentioned it as well, from the permanent fund income, there's 40 million. So you add those two together, it's 177 million. So that would be the beginning base. So for 21, it was 167. For 22, it's 177. So it's about $10 million more. So that's the good news. And then Delegate Smith asked about how the personnel lapse would be integrated into the budget process. And I'm aware that he issued a directive at a prior BNF committee meeting that language or provisions be adopted into the budget resolution and probably into the budget resolution, both by BNF and then at council, to limit its use to its intended purpose. That means personnel cost. And don't use it as a pot of funds to make non-personnel projects and budget additions and so forth. So when we come to BNF on June 24th or 25th, that language or provision would be made available. Now to Elmer Begay's question one, that Ms. Kirk did an update on the 22 revenue. Okay, first of all, as I said, on March 31st, that was issued. That was the overall general fund revenue projection. That has not changed as yet. So it's still 137 million. So it's the same amount. change now is because the 5-year plan was passed and signed into law, and we got the controller's office from Ms. Begay, the 40 million is now available as well. So that's what gives the total now of 177 million. And I could mention at this point, remember, the Navajo Nation Council also set aside 20 million from the UUFB. That could be used. Maybe some of it, because you see, I already mentioned there's a $10 million increase. So it could be said that maybe we don't need all of the 20 million. But if the B&F committee and branch chiefs choose to dip into it, it ought to be for non-recurring purposes because it's UUFB. The second question, the B&F hearings, whether the Budget and Finance Committee budget room, conference room would be available. I don't know about that. That would be up to Ms. Nakai and the chair and Speaker's office. And again, on the virtual process, if that's the way it's going to be, I agree with him completely. A lot of times on the phone, you hear background noises and people are muted and unmuted and so forth. All I can say about that is if that's the way it's going to go, hopefully it'll be a little bit better this time around. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that's my response, in addition to Ms. Begay's comments.
Thank you for that response, Mr. Biel. And back to the Budget and Finance Committee. Are there any further questions, comments? On the budget calendar. Chair Enio, this is Vice Chair Smith. Vice Chair Smith. Thank you, Chair Enio. I appreciate the controller bringing forth that information. However, my phone call dropped, but I don't want to ask the question again, but all that, basically, could I have that email to me regarding what she read through? I was diligently listening, and, you know, I just heard Mr. Bial saying that the phone calls drop and everything like that. That's true. Unfortunately, when you just said that one there, so I'm just requesting through you, Chair, to have a controller send that to, the acting controller send that to me through email so that I can have that and have an idea of where we're at. And the chapters would like to have that report too. We're in the first part of the month, and usually they have their planning meetings, and also they have their chapter meetings coming up. So without that information, so appreciate that, Chair. Thank you.
Chair Henio, this is Peggy. Can I say something?
Go ahead, Peggy.
Members of the Budget and Finance Committee, the controller's report was emailed out to you this morning at about, I would say, 9 o'clock, 9:15. So you should have that in your email.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that information. Any further questions, comments, committee members?
Chair, I have a question. This is Peggy again. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Peggy.
This is a question to Dominic, Mr. Bial. You indicated that the Budget and Finance Committee may need a special meeting later this month, either the 24th or 25th. How soon will we be able to know what date we need to have a special meeting?
Mr. Beal?
Mr. Chair, in reply to Ms. Nakai, I almost said Delegate Nakai, her question. Well, as I mentioned earlier in my remarks and comments and overview and summary, at this point I'm requesting the B&F committee to adopt this schedule in earnest, meaning, inform all of us that this is it, this is what we're going to go by. So if the committee does that, then the dates that were mentioned for the B&F committee meeting on June 24th or 25th would be pretty definite. At that point, it would be up to the committee to decide on which date to go with. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. Any further questions or comments, committee members?
You're in here, Vice Chair Smith?
Vice Chair Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Looking through the email, I didn't see anything regarding what our advisor's talking about, Shada. So that's why I'm requesting that. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Chair, I have the same. I don't have any reports available from a controller. Thank you.
Hey, Peggy, if you would send that out again to the committee members that don't have the report, or to everybody. And then that way, when we get their report, we'll have that available. Any further questions for Mr. Bial on his report? Not, then I'll call for the question to accept the report. Ramona, if you would lead us in roll call vote.
Sure, Chairman, roll call vote for the report on the budget process. Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth-Bach Carty, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth-Bach Carty, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green.
Thank you. Nathaniel Brown votes green. Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 3 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposed, 2 members not voting, and chairman not voting.
Yellowhair votes green. My phone got me, so back on it. So I'll vote green.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Jimmy Yellowhair votes green, so we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposed, 1 member not voting, and chairman not voting. Chairman.
Hey, thank you for that. Roll call vote, and we do have a vote 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. So with this, we will go to the next item on our agenda, which is the ARPA funding process. Again, Mr. Bial, if you would lead us in that discussion.
Okay, thank you, Chair Hinio. ever since the word came out from the Washington office and others that the American Rescue Plan Act funding is going to be coming soon. We're all aware that there's been a lot of following the information from some of our consultants and so forth about this particular status. What are the funds going to be used for? What are the limits and the terms, conditions of the use, etc., so on and so forth. We've all been interested in that, and we've heard lately that there's $1.8 billion plus been identified now for Navajo Nation. That's the bulk of the money, but there's also funds coming in from IHS, Navajo Region, BIA, Navajo area, and so forth. So all of that's we're trying to monitor and track that, and I know others are as well in the government. So within OMB, based on the CARES experience, monies with the Coronavirus Relief Recovery and Economic Act, CARES, last year, we believe that it would be better to formulate a process from the very beginning. So with that, Mr. Cordell Shorty, the contracting officer, who would be the lead person with external funds, the ARPA money, ARPA, is external funds, has designed or planned a proposal. And he'll be, as I said, the lead person to work with this. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to him at this point. Mr. Shorty. Shorty, are you there?
This is Cordell. Can you hear me?
Yes, now. Go ahead. Speaking from OMB.
Chairman Smith, Chairman Henio, excuse me, Vice Chairman Smith, Budget and Finance Committee members, the listening audience. Dominic mentioned my name in my title, so I'll do a quick overview. The Chief Legislative Counsel, Ms. Dana Barbara, convened a virtual meeting in late April, around April 26th, if I remember correctly, with representative from OMB, OOC, Department of Justice, to get the ball rolling, if you will, to prepare for make preparation for the nation being allocated ARPA monies, American Rescue Plan funding. As we heard, at that time there was $20 billion made available for Indian country. $1 billion would be distributed equally among the federally recognized tribe, which is around 574 recognized tribe. And the $19 billion would be on a formula basis. Since then, we've learned that the nation has been allocated $1.8 billion. So in that April meeting, the discussion was what process should we develop, and what requirements should we develop, what documents, what timeline, what instruction. So the understanding at the conclusion of that discussion was, okay, you will recall that for the CARES Act funding, the same representative of the same offices, OMB, OOC, DOJ, and Office of Legislative Counsel, develop instructions application for CARES Act funding. And in that instruction, it had information who the eligible entities would be that can apply for CARES Act funding. There was a format developed, an application form, and included in the instruction was timeline, also clarification what the funding could be used for, and the review the request need to go through, and so forth. So in this April meeting, that's what we discussed it. So at the end, the understanding was, okay, OMB being the budget office, the office that develops procedures, instruction for Navajo Nation budget development process and external grants, proceed to update the rules that the BNF had adopted in July of 2020. So that was done on June 2nd. I developed that instruction and forwarded to DOJ, Office of the Controller, and also CC Dana for review. So it's out there now, and I haven't gotten any feedback yet. And the understanding also was, let's do what we can to fast track development of this, and maybe include the rules through BNF review, action, approval, and as an amendment to FY21 Budget Instruction Manual, which is the current year's manual, included in there, and then further include the same in the FY22 Budget Manual. So Dominic gave a report on the status and preparation for FY22 budget process. So since the BIM is under development, we thought might as well just include it in the BIM for the 22, since that will be adopted here in a short time, rather than including in 21 and then also including in 22. So that's where it's at. And I saw the email from Peggy requesting an update on this, that the email included Ms. Begay, the controller, Mel, DOJ, and I hope that those individuals are on the line, can also speak to the status of their review of the draft instruction. So there is a draft in there, out there, being reviewed in preparation to be included in the final action, in the final BIM for review and action by Budget and Finance Committee. And a part of the review also is Office of the President, so they get an opportunity to take a look at the draft instructions as well. So that's an overview of what has happened and a status on that, Mr. Chair and members of the Budget Finance Committee.
Hey, Mr. Bial, is there anything more that you'd like to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. No, not at this time. I think Mr. Shorty explained it. Thank you.
Christine. Okay, thank you for that. So back to committee. Is there a motion to accept the report?
Ms. Delegate Brown, I'll motion to accept the report.
Okay, motion by Senator Delegate Nathaniel Brown to accept the report. Is there a second?
Yellow hair, second.
Okay, Senator, second by Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. So with this, we do have a motion by Delegate Nathaniel Brown, second by Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. There's questions, comments, committee members.
Chair, any of this is Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate that report and on the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act. I heard earlier that acting controller said that the money has been deposited into, I guess, interest bearing, and has two parts to this question. One is CARES money. How much of the interest do we have? And how much interest is available from the CARES money that we could utilize? Could we apply that to the general fund, or could we apply that to COVID-19 pursuant to the pandemic? And that kind of is in line with the same question with the ARPA. What's the percentage on that? I kind of heard it was at a real low percentage, but 1.8 billion. Even if you have a small percentage in there, you're still making out pretty well with the interest. And is there any stipulations on the interest through the ARPA? I know that the CARES, you can utilize it, but under the ARPA, is there any stipulations that if we do that, are we allowed to do that? And are we kind of allowed, like what CARES had done? Those are two of my questions, Sir Henry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. Any other further questions or comments, committee members? Motion da, Elmer P. Begay.
Hold on. My question, so right now, so what will be the time and the process to start that dropping the legislation or to set the ARPA funding of $1.8 billion and to outline it according to the guidelines. When would be the best time to start dropping legislation for it? That's my question. Henry.
Okay, thank you for that. There's one question for the acting controller from Vice Chair Smith. Do you have Ms. Elizabeth Begay? Are you still on the line with us?
Hi, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
What is it again, the question?
Okay, Mr. Vice Chair Smith, I have two questions. One was that this money, ARPA money, he said that he heard that has been received and it's in the bank. And or is it, and what type of investment account is it in? That's his first question. Then the second question was from the CARES Act, last year's money, how much of it has been earned as far as interest? How much interest has that money earned, and what's the balance of that interest account? At the same time, where can this money be used? Can it be made part of the general fund, or does it have to be for COVID relief? Meaning that the Treasury guidelines still apply. I believe that's what was the extent of Vice Chair Smith's question. Okay.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. For the ARPA money, we open a money market account to put that money, at least it generates interest. And right now, the interest rate fluctuates every day. It fluctuates between 0.03% and 0.025%. But I'm looking at the sub-policy for grants. If we can transfer some of the money to a treasury bills for longer term, it may be able to generate higher interest rate. So we calculated for the ARPA, the 1.8 billion, it's just generating around 1,500 a day. At least it's earning interest, but we would like to get a better interest rate. So we're researching. Since we have 3-year plan to expend the money, we recommend to place it in a long-term treasury bills. And with the sub-policy for grants, it will provide guidance how to invest that. And I would like to get the investment committee involved as well, the best way to invest the ARPA, given that we have a 3-year plan for this funding. For the CARES Act, we generated $320,000 to date since we invested the money when we received it last year. And the interest rate, or the interest earned for the CARES Act fund, it's required to be expended under the COVID relief guidelines. Because of the NAVI resolution, we anticipate to just put that interest earned into hardship program, added to the leftover we have to date, which is the one I reported earlier of $43,274,389. Of course, I'm sorry that I jumped into my report. I was in a meeting with the delegate in Virginia, Charles Newton, but that's the response to your 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. Out of Mr. Dominic Bial, regarding Delegate Elmer P. Gabe's question.
This is Mr. Bial. I'll defer to Mr. Shorty. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I have a question by Delegate Begay. Based on the timeline that Dominic presented on preparation to implement the FY22 budget process, he estimates that the BIM should be adopted by Budget and Finance Committee by June 22nd. So that the instruction, the timeline, the application process to apply for ARPA funding will be available at that time. The instruction and the guideline. And then as far as the allocation of that fund, how the council handled that on the CARES was that allocation was done by the council. So in this case, the same process is followed from the time the application is submitted, based on FY22 Budget Instruction Manual, when adopted by on June 25th. The application probably come in by the end of July, and the allocation done by the end of August, something like that. So the earliest would be late August when this funding would be allocated and available for use. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that's my response.
Okay, thank you for that response, Mr. Shorty. So with this, back to the Budget and Finance Committee. Are there any further questions or comments regarding this presentation?
Sure, this is Delegate McGee. I have a question again.
So, Shinada, you have the floor.
And thank you for the response from Shinada, Mr. Shorty, and then also the Mr. Gay too. Somewhere or is it already made available for any guidelines and procedures? The usage of this ARPA funding. When is it going to be available to share it with the BNF committee? Is there any guidelines, detailed guidelines? Can that be shared with us? And thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Any other questions, Budget and Finance Committee? No, yeah. Defer back to Mr. Bial or Mr. Shorty for the response.
Go ahead, Mr. Shorty.
I think in the overview Dominic provided on the timeline to process the BIM, he gave a due date or a projected date to drop the legislation for review of the BIM to prepare for adoption on that. So as I reported, the instruction on the ARPA funding guideline will be in the BIM, and the proposed date to drop the legislation is June 18th, which is a week from this Friday. So that will be the date, the instruction, the guideline on ARPA funding allocation will be available for review. Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
I appreciate that. Delegate Elmer P. Begay, does that answer your questions?
Part of it, in your chair, thank you. I think when it will be the Budget and Finance Committee, when it can be shared with us the whole instruction on the guidelines of ARPA fundings with BNF. Previously, that's what happened with the controller. Because I don't know how long a time for us to review, to go through the documents. Maybe you can send to us and then we can review it. Then whenever we can put it on the agenda to have more questions about it. Thank you.
Okay, big on that.
Mr. Chair, this is Mel.
Thank you for joining our conversation. Do you have the floor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity. I just wanted to jump in here and let the committee know that the Tax and Finance Unit of DOJ is reviewing Mr. Shorty's draft proposed language for the BIM that provides procedures for review of FRF expenditure plans, or proposed expenditure plans rather, and also budgeting procedures for FRF. And my colleague Kristen Lowell is also on the line, and she is taking the lead on that review process and editing. So I wondered if we can have the opportunity to speak a little bit about this, sir.
Yes. Mel.
Great. Ms. Lowell, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for being back to BNF. Coming back to be there, Ms. Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, members of the committee, this is Kristen Lowell at the Tax and Finance Unit of the Department of Justice. And I would just like to share a little bit about the discussions at the Tax and Finance Unit about the document that was sent by Mr. Shorty. And I'd like to thank Mr. Shorty for sending us that document and providing a basis from which to work and make some edits. The Tax and Finance Unit met yesterday afternoon to discuss the best way to go about approaching this. And right now what we have is a draft that is substantially similar to the procedures that BNF approved for the CARES funding. There are enough differences with the ARPA FRF funds so that the Tax and Finance Committee, Tax and Finance Unit thinks that it's worthwhile to do some revisions to it. For example, there's more flexibility in terms of spending. One particular provision that we have in for using the FRF funds is that the nation can provide government services to the extent that the nation has lost revenues. So that is an important distinction that was not included in CARES. I'm also looking to see if there are ways that I can simplify the process a little bit, but essentially, here's the outline. So a request will come in and it'll first go to OMB, and it will get reviewed by OMB, it will get reviewed by OOC, DOJ, and OPVP. And this document will then be presented to the Office of Legislative Counsel. At that point, the Office of Legislative Counsel will be able to draft legislation, and the legislation will go to Council and then for approval to the Office of the President and Vice President. I am currently expecting to get a draft document to the key stakeholders, OLC, OMB, OOC, OPVP, by this Friday, June 11th. So that's still going to be in a rough form. I don't know if that will be ready for BNF review since it'll still be a draft form. But once the group of stakeholders is satisfied that no additional edits are needed. That wasn't me. So once the group of stakeholders are satisfied that no additional edits are needed, it's possible that the Budget and Finance Committee members could be provided an advance copy before legislation is introduced and presented to the Budget and Finance Committee. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Chair, members of the committee.
Okay, thank you for that response. So back to the committee, Budget and Finance Committee. Are there any further questions or comments?
Chair Henyo, this is Dana. If there's an opportunity, I would like to chime in.
Let's go ahead, Dana. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Budget and Finance Committee, OMB, DOJ, Controller's Office. One thing that I think is important to this discussion is the timing as to when this process is adopted. I want the committee to know that Office of Legislative Counsel already has 3, maybe 5 requests for legislation for fiscal recovery APRA funds. So getting the process in place soon is quite important. The one thing that I'm going to recommend that the Budget and Finance Committee keep in mind, and it's a timing issue, but under the CARES funds, as you recall what the way the process works is the council was approving an expenditure plan with a gross dollar amount. For example, I'm just making this up, $2 million of CARES funds to the Department of Information Technology to put in broadband. That is basically what the council was approving. The underlying budgets supporting that $2 million were approved after the fact, after council action. They were approved through executive branch review. The way I am looking at what has been provided so far by Mr. Shorty, the recommendation is to change that process so that the underlying budgets would be approved at council. Either way is, of course, up to the committee and the OMB controller experts on that. But the one thing that I do want to point out is that, if you recall in the CARES Fund legislation, there were lots and lots of floor amendments. Those floor amendments only required expenditure plans. If this process changes and so that detailed budgets are required, they will need to be approved by OMB Controller's Office, signed off on by OPVP or etc. Before an amendment can be made. So I just want to point that out to keep in mind not only the process for getting the expenditures implemented, but the process for legislating them. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Budget and Finance Committee.
Hey, thank you, Dana, for that information, as it helps the discussion as we move along. Any further questions or comments on Budget and Finance Committee members? Hearing none, I'll call for the question to accept the report. Ramona, if you would lead us in roll call vote.
Sure, Chairman, roll call vote for the accepting the report. Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I'll vote green. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Amber Kenneth Crotty, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth Crotty. Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green.
Thank you. Nathaniel Brown votes green. Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Chairman, we have 3 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, 2 members not voting, chairman not voting, and chairman.
Thank you for that roll call vote. So with that, we do have 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Curtis
Delegate
Begay.
We voted. What's your vote? Green or red on accepting the report?
I got dropped answer. I was on another phone here. I'm using my cell phone again. So I wanted to throw them a question, but the other so I don't know. Is there a way that I could still ask questions?
We already voted to accept your report. On your vote,
Okay, maybe Peggy, can I direct some questions and emails?
you could do that. Direct them to Peggy, and then she can send them out to Mr. Shorty.
Yeah, Mr. Shorty, and then also Ms. Lowe. I have a question for them.
Okay, send it by email. They'll provide a response.
Okay, okay. I'm voting red on this one then.
Okay, what's that? So this Ramona, they'll get Elmer PBK to vote red.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Just promoted. So the roll call vote for accepting the report is 3 in the affirmative, 1 opposed, 1 member not voting, and chairman not voting. Chairman.
Okay, that takes care of the report. Peggy?
I was going to also suggest that this could be an agenda item again for next week, if the committee wanted to have a further discussion on it or anything.
That's a good recommendation. Can I keep that on the agenda, as we need to keep discussing this as we move along?
Yeah, can I go ahead and make a motion, or is it?
Yeah, we'll put it on the agenda again next week.
Can we give us a written report on it too, from request that?
We'll make that request to OMB and DOJ.
Oh, I think with written report, I know that all the chapters are this information because how my vice chair he mentioned that people want to be more transparent. I'm gonna.
We have one more report. I believe we did receive email information from the Ms. Elizabeth Gay, our acting controller, and she already provided some of her reports earlier, but I'll yield the floor back to her to finish providing the formal report to the Budget and Finance Committee. Ms. Elizabeth Gay. And somebody, I think, Delegate Elmer Begay, can you put your phone on mute?
Mine's on mute, sir.
Oh, okay. It's just somebody's walking. There he goes. Ms. Elizabeth Begay. Ms. Begay, our office of Navajo Nation Control Office. Is there anybody on the line? Office of the Controller, first call.
Chair, their phone is muted, so *6.
Okay, *6. Office of the Controller, *6. Office of the Controller, second call. Nomination Office of the Controller, third and final call. Nobody on the line from the Office of the Controller, so moving forward. Next item is old business. There's no new business. We took care of that. Close the session. Then now members.
Chair, I think that the Office of the Controller has a dropped call, and so they're trying to get back on the call.
Well, I called them 3 times already.
They're asking what the phone number is now, so I'm gonna give it to them, or should I just tell them it's done?
Well, there's nobody motioning to adjourn, so if they can still get back on the call before there's a motion to adjourn.
Okay, so just give us a couple of
few
minutes.
We'll give them a few minutes. We'll give them a few minutes to get back on the call.
I just gave her the phone number so she can call back in.
Okay, Officer of the Controller, are you back on the line?
For some reason, she's getting the busy signal, she said, so she's trying.
Office of the Controller. Okay, Budget and Finance Committee. It seems that we're not able to connect with the Office of the Controller. As time is moving along, it's up to the committee if they wish to adjourn or keep holding on out.
Motion adjourned, Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith, there's a motion to adjourn by Vice Chair Smith. There's a second. Delegate Elmer Begay. And Delegate Elmer P. Begay, second. There's a motion by Vice Chair Smith to adjourn, second by Delegate Elmer P. Begay. Ramona, if you would lead us in a roll call vote.
Chairman, roll call vote for motion to adjourn. Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Amber Kines-Bott-Crotty, how do you vote? Amber Kines-Bott-Crotty. Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote? Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Elmer P. Begay votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Jimmy Yellowhair. Amber Kines-Bott-Crotty, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown. Chairman, we have 2 members voting in the affirmative, 3 members not voting. Chairman not voting. Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that. Looks like we do not have a quorum at this time. We'll do an official roll call to see if there's still a quorum. Would you do an official roll call, Ramona?
Sure. Official roll call for the Budget and Finance Committee of the Nation Council. Raymond Smith Jr.
Present.
Thank you. Raymond Smith Jr. present. Jimmy Yellowhair. Jimmy Yellowhair. Amber Kines-Bott-Crotty. Amber Kines-Bott-Crotty. Nathaniel Brown.
Hello, Mr. Chair.
Nathaniel Brown.
Hello.
Elmer.
Anybody can hear me? Hello.
Continue with your roll call.
Elmer P. Begay.
I'm here.
Chairman, we have 2 members answering roll call, 3 members not answering roll call. Chairman.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, so with
hello,
that,
can anybody hear me?
With that, we
Mr. Chair,
back to.
Can you hear me?
Hold on, please hold on. We're conducting a roll call here. Ramona, so what's the quorum issue? Do we have quorum or not?
Chairman, we don't have a quorum. Only 2 members answered. Also, I'm sorry, Jamie Hinyo.
Present, I'm present.
I'm sorry, so there's 3 members present and 3 members not answering roll call. Chairman. So we don't have
With
a
that,
quorum.
and with that roll call, there is no quorum. We've lost the quorum.
This is Delegate Begay. This is Delegate Begay. Answering the roll call. Can you hear
I
me?
believe she counted you. Ramona? Delegate Elmer P. Begay, did you count him?
Yes. I counted Elmer P. Begay as present.
So we do have just 3 members according to our roll call vote
Chair.
and roll call answering. So with that, we do not have a quorum. It is 1:26 p.m.
Chair.
And
on the
therefore,
line.
on the line. This meeting is almost adjourned here. Delegate Jimmy Yeller here.
Yeah, I was on the line with the Department of Justice about my chapter. On the line.
Ramona.
I was waiting for controller too. Anyway, I'm back on the line.
Ramona,
Yes, Chairman.
would you do roll call again? That's one last time. If there's no quorum, we'll adjourn for the day.
Sure, Chairman. Roll call for the Budget and Finance Committee of the Navajo Nation Council. Jamie Henyo.
I'm present.
Thank you, Jamie Henyo present. Raymond Smith Jr. Thank you, Raymond Smith Jr. present. Jimmy Yellowhair.
I'm present.
Thank you, Jimmy Yellowhair present. Amber Kenneth-Bacrati. Amber Kenneth-Bacrati. Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown is present.
Thank you, Nathaniel Brown is present. Elmer P. Begay.
Oh, so I'm here.
Thank you, Elmer P. Begay is present. Chairman, we have 5 members present, 1 not answering roll call. Chairman.
Okay, Shana, thank you for that. And we were right in the middle of a motion to adjourn vote when we perceived to have lost the quorum. And therefore, the vote tally for motion to adjourn is Vice Chair Smith voted green. Delegate Elmer P. Begay voted green. And those were the only 2 votes so far. And I do believe I did hear Miss Elizabeth Begay coming on the line right now. So with this, Vice Chair Smith, on your motion to adjourn, do you still wish to keep it?
Yes, Chair. Yes, I do.
Okay. With that, Vice Chair Smith, I wish to keep moving forward with his motion to adjourn. Delegate Elmer P. Begay, you're holding the second. Are you still holding that second?
Chair, yeah, I'll be
okay.
Agree with Chair, Vice Chair.
Kushina. With that, we have 2 members that have come back on. Ramona, so if you would continue the voting to adjourn.
Sure, Chairman, voting to adjourn roll call vote. Raymond Smith, how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you, Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you, Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Amber Kenneth-Bacrati, how do you vote? Amber Kenneth-Bacrati, how do you vote? Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes red.
Thank you. Nathaniel Brown votes red. Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 3 members voting in the affirmative, 1 member opposing, 1 member not voting, chairman not voting. Chairman?
With that, roll call vote to adjourn. 3 in favor, 1 opposed. It is 1:30 p.m. and we are hereby adjourned. Akala, thank you. And our next regular meeting for Budget and Finance Committee is June 15th at 10 o'clock a.m. And we will put this one item that we never got to back on the agenda as part of the reports. Thank you, Shananta. Have a good rest of the afternoon. We do have Nabi on the other side, so we'll see everybody on that side.
Chair Henio, this is Peggy.
Yes.
So the item that you want to put on next week's agenda is the update from the Office of the Controller?
Yes, and also the ARPA, continuing discussion on the ARPA funding process.
Okay,
that
so
Delegate Elmer McGay had requested for.
Okay, that's the two items, plus you'll hear the FY22 budget process update.
Oh, I-A-O.
Yep. All righty. So our
Christina.
next meeting is the 15th. Okay, thank you.
Gina.
Arosho, that joint meeting with RDC, I haven't heard any feedback to on the memo. I did draft the memo and I've been asking the advisor. So what I think I'll do is I'll just go ahead and finalize it and it'll be placed in your box for signature because we need to get that all finalized for next week's travel.
Gina, I'll be leaving for Window Rock here in a little bit, so I'll be there this afternoon to sign up.
Okay, and just FYI, we've been, some of us have been working remotely because we have a really bad smell in our building. We think something must have gone under there as periodically we have that problem where something goes up into the building and, you know, expires and then it has that awful smell. So then we have to get that extracted. So just FYI on that. So don't be too surprised if it really smells bad.
Okay, thank you for that. Heads up, I'll keep a nose out for it.
Yeah, and then can you text me once you get there because I'm working remotely. I'll just get over there and get that process for you. Okay, to all of you
I'll
attending our meeting.
I'll text you when I'm going through Gallup.
Wishy. Thank you, everybody. And you guys all have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Next week, Tuesday, the 15th of June is our next meeting at 10 o'clock. And I'll